Hi everyone. Hope all of you are doing well, staying safe and at home. This is Shivani Ranella and I'm going to be hosting the first episode of my new podcast channel, Unplugged Lockdown Conversations. To tell you a little about me, I'm an architect and an artist. And today on the first episode, I've invited three of my very close friends from college, Harshit, Ritvik and Gaurav. Harshit has completed his engineering in 2019 and he is an MBA aspirant. Gaurav and Ritvik have also completed their architecture along with me and are going to be doing their masters this year. So in college, we used to have great intellectual conversations, and today we are going to talk about one of those. It will be great for all of you to listen to it. We're going to be discussing about the gap between required social life skills and its ignorance at school level. Well, according to me, along with academics, I believe that life skills are very much important for every child to inculcate. Anywhere and everywhere throughout life, it will be used. But we need to see if they're actually learning all of this. So let's go ahead with this conversation and see what my friends have to say about it. And I'll be asking them a few questions and we'll be seeing them respond to it. Let's start with Harshit. What do you really think are the most important life skills needed at school and
Yeah,
which
hey
you
Shiva.
must have not got before? So, okay.
Yeah, so hey Shivani, like you have really chosen a very important topic, and like the heading already says that it is one of the most ignored ones. So let's just start by defining what we seriously think what life skill education really means. So according to me, any skill that actually helps you to actually survive in this world or makes you a better person day by day is life skill education. But the question that we really need to ask ourselves is that when we are going into school, or even in fact when we passed the school and went to college, so how many skills did we really add to our lives which are actually helping us in real life? For me, even tying a shoelace is a life skill, right? Because it is actually being used at some point in our life. But whatever I've learned in my chemical engineering tenure, I have rarely used it. So I won't call it as a life skill. It's just a certification. So that is what I feel basically a life skill should be something that is relevant and useful in our real life. So that is how I would like to start the conversation, and then we can move ahead with our other panelists.
Great.
Hey Harshad, yeah, this is. I'm glad this topic actually came up because me and a friend of mine in college, we actually were trying to, start a startup of our own, which actually focused on, developing life skills of the students in the school. Okay, so like we really see these days that we just keep learning those textbook things like all the science, all the things. How many times do we even use those lessons? Hardly, hardly quite a couple of times, as a matter of fact. So I'm really glad this topic actually came up, and yeah, I think this is going to help a lot of people out there. All right.
Yeah, like both of them have already, emphasized how important, this particular topic is that we're talking about today. Um, so, like every day, once, I've realized after we have graduated, I've realized how huge of a gap we had between our education and what we are, meant to do outside in the world. And there are a few skills that are common to every field, not just for architecture that I'm involved in, but I'm pretty sure every field has had to deal with some sort of a skill which they could have required a better education at a much lower level, because once you're out there in the world, you're just left on your own, to do things and assume that you're supposed to know these things by hand, or just go with whatever is happening in your life. And I've always believed in the fact that a degree or a college graduating certificate is just a proof of what you've learned and not what you know. And ultimately uh, those skills, okay, I agree, I'm not completely pushing away the importance of formal education and what they've taught us so far, but all I'm saying is it's especially in India, it's high time that we've oriented ourselves to how the market responds to once people have graduated. Because I don't know how to do my taxes, I'll have to hire a CA, pay him a huge amount and have him file my taxes for me, which is very important because I'm gonna be doing that for almost a good part of my life. until I retire, or even after that. I mean, if there's a good amount which is supposed to be taxed, ultimately as a rule-abiding citizen, you're expected to file your taxes and get things done. Or say, for example, if I'm supposed to start my own firm, then I don't have the like I might have the will to do it, I might have the idea to get it done, but there's a process of getting things established. So I believe there's so many skills, so many gaps that we are left with, which could have been taught in school.
So,
I
like
think,
taking Gaurav.
yeah, Harshit, you go first.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, like taking Gaurav's point forward, like he said very rightly that we need not to see things, black or white. There can be an intermediate, right? So we can't completely rule out formal education, but what we should try is to inculcate certain necessary things and removing certain things which are not required, right? Because I know how to do calculus and integration, which I haven't used outside my books, but I don't know how to calculate compound interest. I know for the sake, but I'm just giving you an example. But the point is, when I'm preparing for an MBA, I'm having a separate lecture to how to calculate compound interest, which I did not know, which I was supposed to know, right? Like the point that Gaurav said about taxation. It is an important skill. Everyone has to do it, right? But we don't know. We need to hire a professional for that. So, what kind of education are we providing our children with, right? And this is like even hygiene. Like people are not taught the important hygiene skills in the childhood days which they are supposed to know to survive and live a better life. Rather they are taught some high level integral and differentials. I don't think so that is something which is important. Even while we are learning finance, we are learning it in the commerce section. We are not learning it till class 10. So how is a person going to make an informed choice when throughout his journey till class 10th he has just studied science? So that is a problem that I faced, and I think many of the others, even people in this panel, might have faced the same.
So basically, what Harshit said, I was even I was about to say the same thing. So thank you, Harshit. Already you have covered my share of thought. So I was thinking, like, whenever we think about you know uh, the gap between the formal education and the relevant life skills that we need in the life, in our lives, we first of all, the very foremost thing that comes to our mind is the finance. Why finance? We already discussed, me and Harshit were discussing a few days back, like for real estate investment. I mean, we don't know anything about how economy works. We have not been taught anything, like zero. अभी आगे चल के किसी को अगर कुछ investment करना भी है, if someone wants to buy a piece of land, he does not know what kind of factors are going to affect the value of in the later period of his life, or the life cycle of that piece of land. So आगे चल के उस बंदे का loss होना है, and he does not know about it. That's very sure. So how is one going to invest all their life's money into it? We don't know that. We need to learn all those things. We need to understand how economy works, how money works. And to be very honest, schools में I don't think इसका हमको 1% भी सिखाया जाता है, and that is very big loss that we actually face in our life. And ये सबसे पहले ये तो बस एक example है finance sector में, and there are also other life skills like marketing, selling products. We don't know that. Why do we have to go to an MBA school to just learn these very basic things? As an architect, I have to sell my project. अब मैं क्या उसके लिए जाके MBA करूँ? No, that should be very well ingrained in myself, I think. So that is the kind of अभी we have not really discussed the solutions as such, लेकिन that is what I think could be the way out. One of the ways, कि like MBA की कुछ चीजें हों, मतलब बेसिकली जो आगे चल के हम डेप्थ में पढ़ने वाले हैं उसका एक थोड़ा सा शेयर ऑफ इट should also be taught in the schools.
Right.
Yeah.
So, along with this, I was thinking that these kind of skills could be taught from the classes of 8th to 12th, I guess, because obviously children at that age can understand these kind of situations.
Right.
I was thinking for students from first standard to 7th standard who are taught moral science and few of those rules and regulations that you should follow when you grow old. Do you really think that those moral science are just taught till school level, or is it really so valuable and they actually practice it at a older age, or they leave school and then follow those things? How much of it is actually important? What do you think?
See,
Harshit, you can
Shivani,
start.
yeah, I would like to counter on this point to you. Like, across the things that I've learned in the school, I think value education is the thing I think was the most relevant ones. But the point is, with what sincerity were we taught that? Just to pass the exams, or actually to inculcate the same in our lives?
Yeah.
That is the question. So, are we studying all these values and ethics with the same sincerity with which we are studying social sciences and science? So that is the question. So the intent is what is important, right? And now taking this discussion to one step ahead, and then moving ahead from finance and the other domains which are important.
Yeah.
Like, I would also like to touch upon certain points like emotional quotient, mental health. We
Yeah.
are not taught about such topics in our schools, which are really, really important, right? At some point of time where we face failures is a part of life. Who is going to teach us that? Are we going to learn that hard way, or can it be taught at our school levels? So that is something I feel is a problem. And in the later discussion, when we are talking about solutions, I would like to propose certain points about that.
Actually, Harshit actually really covered a very important term. Actually, I would say mental health. Actually, pandemic ke time pe we all are seeing a lot of people, going through a lot of anxiety. They don't know how to focus on their career. They don't know how to focus on their daily life, because certain kind of anxiety, certain kind of panic is there in their mind. They're dealing with a whole different level of struggle altogether in a way. So one should always know, we should be taught in schools, from the very smaller grades even. आप
Yeah.
थर्ड स्टैंडर्ड से सिखाना शुरू करो यार. आप उसमें सिखाओ कि how to manage your mental health, how to manage your panic attack, how to deal with it, what to do about it. आप meditation भी सिखाओ. Even that is a very important facet of a life.
Right.
So that could really help as a person, as a overall human being. If you are the yeah, I just remembered a quote. You should be afraid of the calmest person in the room. And if you don't have your calmest mind in the room, how can you be that person? So this is
Right.
a very important issue, mental health.
That's
And
Yeah,
this is
I
not
mean,
just yeah, you go ahead.
sorry,
Yeah, it's okay,
didn't mean to interrupt you.
it's okay, yeah.
yeah. Gaurav, you can
Uh,
continue.
Yeah.
so moral sciences is just one part of what we should have been taught from the very young and tender age, of where it's easier for us to grasp things and put it into practice, because that's the age where we imbibe whatever we learn or whatever we see through any sort of medium, whether it's through a school teaching method, or it's through our parents, or it's through our friends. It's we imbibe it in ourselves very quickly. That's how we respond to information when we are at a much younger age, and we do not do it consciously. It just subconsciously happens to gather that information and put it into practice. If I've been taught not to litter, or if I eat something and put it right where I am and not look for a dustbin, then that's what I'm going to do. And this particular thing could be diversified in so many ways, where we fail as a country altogether. You look at people violating traffic norms as if it's nothing.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
one small thing that you could have taught, which could have a longer repercussion, because I'm breaking this right now. What God knows what other rule I could be breaking, 10, 20 years down the line. Formal that, except for that, this small example I've given, sex education is also, one thing that could have been taught, because ultimately, I could be totally wrong about this assumption, but so many incidents coming into light in India especially, we've seen how big of an issue it is. And what I think has gone wrong from the very beginning is how the people have been kept away from this information, how what sex is, and how there are ways to conduct yourself with the opposite sex, and how you attain that sense of maturity. Because it's very obvious. What do you get curious about? You get curious about something you don't know.
Yes.
And this mentality turns into something, a predator mentality, and later on they just want to go there and explore, and they do not know the right way to do it. that's I'm assuming that's the sort of mentality that people go through when they're involved in cases like rape or assault. They're like, they just want to do something because they've never experienced that feeling before. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to conduct themselves around such feelings. And this could have been avoided in so many incidents if people were just aware that, yeah, this is normal, this is how you're supposed to conduct yourself around such feelings, this is how you're supposed to proceed along these lines. And this is something that could be imbibed in very lower grades in the school, contrary to the fact that people argue ki nahi, this information not supposed to be dissipated in such a younger age. It'll spoil our culture. I believe it could actually improve what we already are facing right now, because so far it has not worked. I mean, the aspect of why we do not do it is because we want to protect our culture has not worked out for so long. And if we just think in the other direction and see if this sort of education changes my mindset in a longer run, I or anyone for that matter of fact might not do something at a lower age, but those repercussions start showing once I'm out there and I don't know how to deal with these things.
Right. So
So
I was also thinking that teachers are definitely supposed to teach moral science to us at school. This is a part of our curriculum. Do you guys also feel that parents play an important role too? Because I feel along with teachers, since we are always at home, our parents are also playing an important role. So you guys can just let me know, what do you think about this perspective? How much of an importance is for parents to talk about this to their children along with the students? We can
Okay, so
start.
yeah, so as like we can say, what Gaurav said, whatever we reflect as a society comes from the units of the society, and we all are the units of the society, right? If my parents were not taught at about these stuff at when they were young, how are they going to teach me the same, right? Like we are having so many government schools, private schools, and these schools are the basic building blocks of our social infrastructure, if we have to give that word to it. So do parents definitely have a responsibility, but that responsibility can only be fulfilled if they themselves are trained in that manner. So I think everything starts at a very tender age, and we need to start building a particular kind of a curriculum or course, whatever fancy word we need to give it, and then we need to start moving so that even parents become aware about such topics. They don't think it is a taboo, and they can convey that better to their children. So that is what
yeah,
I feel.
so in that way, I can very well say from whatever Gaurav has highlighted upon and Harshit as well, that we can't just rule out the concept of formal education until and unless we have formal education in our lives. We are not going to overcome the challenge altogether, right? हमारे parents को even our parents need some kind of formal education. That's how they will learn, they will educate their children. That's how all the moral science that they learn will get imbibed in their children, and so on and so forth. So formal education we just can't rule out. What we need to focus upon is improving our formal education and changing how we teach those things. So yeah, I guess that, yeah, anyone.
Gaurav, what do you
So
think?
like if we have yeah.
Sorry, Arshit, go ahead. You were saying something. I was.
No, you can make a point. The only thing I was saying is that we have discussed a lot of problems. So how would won't it be a very nice way to actually give our solutions to the problem, so that we can conclude in a better way with some insights as well.
So I believe that it starts at a very grassroots level. I mean, we ultimately show ourselves as a country, as a society, at a much larger scale. But all these, if you look at the root of all these problems, it ultimately, I believe, is education. No matter what problem we have as a country right now, is all the underlying problems are somewhere involved in the education system. And they could have been absence of education in some regards, or they could have been complete negligence in this regard. Like we know India is only a country where there's 60% literacy, and that reflects upon certain sides of the society, how we, there's something called yeah, being civil in a society,
Yes.
being mindful of your own space and someone else's along with yours, and obeying these things is very important, because uh, no matter what you do right now, it'll have a repercussion up ahead for so many people. Like, I could be crossing a red light, is a very small example I'm giving. I could be crossing a red light right now. I might just be thinking all I'm doing is crossing a small red light, but ultimately, if I go down that path, I know there's some sort of accident that is bound to happen, because those lights are there for a reason.
Yes.
For me to break that particular rule, it might be a minuscule impact on my mind at that moment when I'm trying to do it, but at a very larger point of view, it creates a very huge impact. So this is very small example of it, so that in a similar way, every small thing that we are missing out in our education is ultimately turning out to be a huge disaster as of now. And I
Yeah,
believe all that starts is if we start including these things in our formal education. That is the only solution, I think.
and even if we if you're not able to get that education to each and every citizen of our country, which is very unfortunate for our country that we just can't provide the right formal education to every citizen of our country. That's very unfortunate. लेकिन अगर एक बंदा भी सही से educated है, उसके actions will create a chain reaction. I believe in that. If I see a person stopping at the red light, I will automatically, I'm encouraged to not do it myself.
Yeah.
So the right kind of education, a life skill that is very impactful in others' life as well. It creates a chain reaction, and it creates a very big chain reaction in a way.
Yes,
And
yes.
it will, you will see a huge difference in a society. अगर मैं कल को कूड़ा कहीं फेंकने जा रहा हूँ, I'm not throwing it right away. I see a dustbin over 100 meters away. I go over there and throw my garbage in that. Another child will see me, and he will learn. That's a life skill. So even if you're not able to teach each and everyone, you just set an example by just a few of them, the right educated ones, those who have life skills. They can set an example in the society. That's a very powerful point, I guess, one should actually focus upon. And as an educated citizen, it is also a responsibility to act responsible in a society. Yeah, so
I
yeah,
think that's very
that's what I,
important.
yes.
And so, since we were talking about all of the gap between the school level and now, we're almost 24, 25 right now, and we've been learning about these things at, I think, 6 to 8. That's what the books at least were given to us at 6 to 8. And when we actually started inculcating was probably at college level, most of us at least, because when we explore different phases of our life, we really understand how to, go through this situation and figure out a solution to it. Do you feel that this can actually be done at a younger age if the teachers can attract students by teaching them in a more clever way instead of just reading it out? Because books, I don't feel, is the only way to teach something, right? They can how we understood was through experiences, definitely. So, and that was at age of 18, 19, more for most of the students. If it's a better way, isn't it that they can learn it by the age of 15, 16? What do you think, Ritvik? You can start.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess we shortly we have a very important urgency in a way. Actually, I would say urgency to improve or evolve the way we teach to our children, right? Because we have been doing the same old textbook reading like kitne saal ho gaye yaar, 70 years since we have become independent, and we have been doing the same thing. We actually need to evolve our way of teaching, and which is very limited to evolved way of teaching is very limited to only those high notch schools, those like Dhirubhai Ambani and all that kind of schools. So we don't have that evolved way of teaching. And there are, we always have learned in our school as well, practical learning.
Yes.
Jitra bhi they in my school, I'll tell you, uh, they always focused on practical learning, but I didn't learn a single thing that was actually practical. So
Right.
why does that even exist in the
Yeah.
syllabus कि आप practical बोल रहे हो लेकिन करवा ही नहीं रहे हो? There's nothing practical in it. So all my teaching was textbook one, and बाकी जो सीखा that was all because of my peers and the kind of society I grew up in.
Right.
See, adding to what Ritvik said, if we have to look for solutions, so
Yes.
in textbooks, okay, what we do is we study a chapter, solve certain questions at the back, and we are done. But what I've learned during preparation of an MBA and like because of my interest when I'm doing case studies, it actually forces me to think about the actual scenario of what I would do, right? So what I feel is the best way to teach even during the school level is to basically bring all that experience of horrible and good people in the form of case studies, bringing it to the table, maybe in the form of textbooks or video lectures, whatever, in on a discussion forum where a teacher will bring that to the class. Everyone will discuss on that topic. Whosoever is having a bad bent of mind will put his point of view, maybe good or bad, mostly bad. Then what teacher will do is she with her own experience and the clear set of solution that she has for the case study will actually talk to that child and tell what actually is the right approach, what is the right thing to do, and why. And I think that would be a better way to teach. It will leave a impact on him for a longer time rather than just reading a textbook where I most of the time used to sleep.
Right.
That is what I feel. That could be one of the ways to move ahead.
Yeah, speaking of case studies, Shivani and Gaurav, we know how many case studies we have done. So actually, one thing that I've seen in architecture colleges that they actually focus on lots of practical education. We go out there in the market and do stuff, which is kind of a thing that misses in our schools. The
Yes.
more basic level of education. What we do in colleges, whatever we have done, like going out and meeting people, conducting questionnaires, gathering useful informations, and market study. We have done a lot of market study. हमने वो paint वाला and all that किया था, right? And material science में. So that is really, I felt, was a good way to make one understand how things are done. So what if we do all those things? We actually did a lot of practical thing actually. अगर वही चीज हम लोग replicate कर दें in more basic level of education in school, that would be actually a very impactful thing.
Beneficial.
And
Yeah.
so there's like a whole chain of things that is, instead of chain, I'd just say the entire system is going in a cycle, because like we've talked about the the importance of how it is important to dissipate this information into children in school, but there's a right way to do it. Now, we've always had teachers who have turned the most boring subjects into the interesting ones, and the most interesting subjects into very boring ones. So, and where does ultimately this is the problem where it starts, because I have hated maths, and I believe, see, okay, 50% of it, I believe it's my fault. I never took it up as out of interest as a subject, but 50% of it, I blame it on my teacher, because they never made it interesting for me. They made it a challenge for me, such a huge challenge which I never understood. So where did this problem start? And this being the teacher is doing this out of their concern to earn money and not practice their passion or out of interest. Ultimately,
Yeah.
so these teachers that we have who have turned very interesting subjects into very boring ones, so we have started hating them altogether, is ultimately because of teachers who took it up as a profession just out of practicing as a financial stability or security for themselves. I've known so many people who who have just got there to just have some sort of a profession in their life. And why does this happen? Ultimately, they have gone through the same sort of education that we have gone through. They've been taught to stay inside the box and be very safe from all the sort of explorations that they could have done to bring out their passion. Like if someone was an artist, how many times do you think our education has promoted that sort of a passion in someone to take it up as a profession after they've graduated college. Barely anyone does that. In school, they'd be, criticizing this idea that there's no future, you'd not be earning money. Ultimately, you're basing this out of the fact that you'll be working for money.
I may, if you allow, Gaurav,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There's also another thing, incentivizing. Why do we always incentivize or make it more ludicrous? Lucrative. Why do we make those professions lucrative? Always look lucrative, like become an engineer, you learn lots of money. Become a doctor, you learn lots of money. You have to focus on other professions as well. That is based around all those other relevant knowledge that we acquire from school, like becoming a sanitation worker. Why not? Why don't we focus on that? Why can't anyone become take up the humanities class and go ahead and become sanity जो आगे तो भी कुछ sanitation के लिए कुछ कर सके, like anyone big in that it can
So that's
मतलब
what
क्या
the entire education system is ultimately what right now is teaching us is to stay inside the box, make it through safe, and
Yeah.
have a life where you have job security and money coming into your account, and you're good for life until you retire. You're gonna work your ass off and then retire with no money in your account ultimately.
And
This
as
fear.
far as yeah you go ahead, Gaurav.
So this particular fear makes them take a profession which is never of their interest, and then as an output of their own work, they're trying to spoil someone else's life, like a bad teacher does to a student. I mean,
Agree.
if you're gone.
No. As far as teachers are concerned, I'll tell you, Gaurav, honestly, this is my real story. I was a failure in mathematics. I was a failure in physics until class 11th. I switched schools. Then I got two teachers who made mathematics and physics so much fun that I excelled in it in my class. And I used to love chemistry from 8th to 10th, but later on in 12th and 11th standard I just hated it because the teacher we got over there was not so interesting. So we actually have a very much a very important role of teachers in how we learn things. Yeah, Harshit, I think you have something to say.
Actually, like after listening to all the things that we have said in this discussion, and since we are reaching the end of it, so I would like to conclude it in a way that there are certain skills which we have to earn money, and others to make this society a better place. And both of them are important at some scale. We can't compare it, right? Both of them are important. So what can we do about it as a solution? So at a school level, what I feel is once a kid is inside or after he has reached first class after doing his basic education, when he is able to read a little bit, right? We should actually do a personality testing to identify what kind of a child he is. That we'll call as test number one. And according to that, we will have certain fixed courses like hygiene is important to everyone, be it artist or a mathematician. And then certain courses are to be there which are according to his personality and interests. And once he reaches a better level like class 7th or 8th where he is understanding and where he has to actually define what he has to do in life to some extent, we do second personality testing to identify what that person has become now, and then we try and develop him in the areas where he actually wants to work in rather than pushing things that he does not even need. That is how we can work upon. And then we will have some good 4 years after class 8 to actually develop his skill set before moving into the colleges. Communication skill is something that we should focus upon, should be a fixed course. Hygiene should be one of the fixed courses, and then mathematics should be an optional course after the basic learning. That is important.
Yeah, science mathematics is not so important.
No, it is important. Basic understanding is important, but you need
Exactly.
not
But
to
you
learn
need
matrix and
in-depth learning of it.
determinant in maths.
Right.
Yeah. So that should be something which should be an optional skill, and that is how we should move forward with it. That's what I feel.
Also, yeah, I have another point: flexibility in in switching subjects. Why don't we have that already? I mean, it is a long time that we it's we should have that flexibility from switching subject. Like I have studied science now. Now I want to do something about finance or maybe something else or something related to humanities. Why can't I just go over there and learn any subject and then start making a life out of it, and then start making the impact in society? Why not? we have, as an architect, I think it is very hard for an architect, to go ahead and just learn any other finance subject right away, because we were not prepared for that. There is not enough flexibility. अगर आगे चल के मैं अपना प्रोफाइल दिखाऊंगा कि पहले मैं I'm an architect, now I want to become a financial analyst, that's not going to work. I have to do extra, I have to go an extra mile to learn that thing. So we need a certain level of flexibility in that.
Right. So I think this conversation would really help a lot of people if they go and hear it out, because at today's generation really needs to explore a lot of subjects other than science and maths, I believe. And we've got to know so many more subjects like finance, taxation, and moral values, mental health. And I'm sure pandemic has helped a lot of us figure it out ourselves. Now the school should take a decision and teach this to the kids. And I think it was a great session with all of you. I really hope teachers, school principal, parents, everybody hear this and make a difference, try to make a difference in the coming up generation and help children out. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad to have you people around for this
Thank you,
discussion.
Shivani, for having us here.
Thank you so much, Shivani. It was a great
Thank you.
discussion. Thanks to my panelists as well. It was a very fruitful.
Thank you.